Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today on Teens Talk TV. Our topic for today is youth and disabilities. We will be discussing youth and disabilities with our lovely guest today. We are honored to have you here with us. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Paige Blake. I am actually a disability. I have a rare disability called spina bifida. Well, a rare form of spina bifida. Most people haven't heard of it. It's called sacrogenesis. And it's so rare because of how it affects me and everything. So I have used my experiences to actually try to advocate for students and other people.
Awesome.
So I've done things. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I've done things like I've advocated at the White House, Congressional Black Caucus, and currently I'm working with the University Systems of Maryland Student Council on diversity, equity, and inclusion to also advocate there. And I'm working on a few other projects on the side right now.
Wow, well, it looks like you're busy. So extra thank you for being with us today. So you spoke about how rare your disability is just because of how it impacts you on a day-to-day basis. So we were wondering, what does your day-to-day look like? So are you in school? And if it is, how do you navigate that? Or if you are just out here living your best life still, how does it impact you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, right now I am in school, actually. I attend Bowie State University. I'm a biology pre-med major. I actually plan to become a doctor to learn more about my condition and everything to help others. But my day-to-day basically kind of looks like everyone else's, just with like minor little adjustments, like trying to keep up with medical stuff. And that's about it. I attend class just like everyone else, take exams and everything.
Okay. And so I just kind of wanted to know, what do you think that people who are around you, including students and professors, or, just people like at the grocery store, should generally know when being around you or being near somebody with a disability like yours? Now, I understand that yours is rare, but if you could go on maybe the more, not normalized, but the form that people mostly have, what do you think people should know when around you all?
Well, I think one thing people should know is to basically treat everyone, just treat other people the way that you see everyone else. Because I know if you see someone who has the typical idea of a disability, you might treat them differently or try to give them extra treatment. And sometimes that can be a good thing, but it can also make them feel a certain type of way. So maybe just treat them like how you would treat everyone else. So maybe I know one thing people do, they tend to make a big deal out of it. So maybe not do that as much. So yeah.
Okay. And so I hear you talk about things that, this kind of bothers me and sometimes this doesn't, sometimes this doesn't. So growing up with this disability, how did you learn to navigate everything that's going on around you and kind of manage yourself while being around all these other people who sometimes can be overbearing and overwhelming?
I love that question. So actually, throughout most of my life, I did struggle with it. But I had good support system at home. And the people around me, they were so supportive and they're like, oh, you can do this and that. And then even when it came to things because I have been discriminated and for the disability, even at school. So I learned to self-advocate for myself, kind of, because in the end, you're not always gonna have someone there, especially as you get older. So yeah.
And so I hear you talk about advocacy, and you listed a whole big list of all this stuff that you have planned, all these places that you've spoken. So what kind of triggered you going from a person who's just trying to navigate her life with this disability to a person who is not only dealing with everything that she has to deal with, but is taking it upon herself to advocate for people who are like her?
I think actually after the whole discrimination thing at school, so when I was a freshman at high school, I was discriminated by a gym teacher and other teachers who were aware that I had a disability. and they kind of completely disregard it and basically try to change, like hurt my grades and everything for it. And I'm like really care about my grades and everything. Because of course we want to become a doctor. So but yeah, they kind of just were terrible. And that was a turning point for me. I decided I need to stand up for myself. And what about the other people who have disabilities who can't advocate for themselves? They need someone. So yeah.
I think you need to go ahead and add public speaking to one of your degrees in there somewhere, because I just see the passion that you have. And I think it's great that, again, that you're taking time to think about all these other people. And so speaking of other people, and maybe people who are like those teachers and other people who have discriminated against you, who don't quite understand, there's often this debate around disabilities about vocabulary and correct labels and incorrect labels and things that should be said and things that shouldn't. So overall, how do you think that people should go about speaking about people with disabilities? I think a lot of people, I think nowadays people try to be more cognizant of what they're saying, not like, I don't want to offend, but some people also just don't have the resources or the knowledge. So how does someone go about that? And if they aren't educated on how to speak or how to label, and not a negative label, but address somebody with a disability, where should they go to find that information?
Well, sometimes, especially like if you're close to the person with the disability, actually just ask them and they'll tell you, hey, this is what, like, I'm cool with you saying, and this, maybe stay away from those vocabulary words.
Okay.
So yeah, because I can't speak for everyone who's disabled, because again, there's so many different ones. It all depends on the person. So
right. I totally agree. So when you were diagnosed with this very rare disability, what was your process in understanding everything that was coming your way?
So when I was diagnosed, I was 4 years old. So, okay. And at the time, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, why is all this happening? And I just couldn't process it at the time. Because imagine you're 4 years old and 1 second everything's perfect and fine in your life, you're healthy as can be. And then you get a crazy diagnosis being like, oh, yeah, this. So, but over time, like as I got older, I got more involved with like my medical health and everything. And I did some research on my own as to the causes, the effects, the long-term effects, things I can do with and without it and everything. And yeah.
Okay. And so how can county residents, because you said you go to Bowie, so you're a local, you're in Prince George's County. So what can citizens and residents of the county do to support people with disabilities? Do you think there are certain programs or certain legislation that needs to be passed that would make lives for people with disability better? Do you think that there are some things that people that don't have disabilities do that are harmful that we're not aware of? And if maybe we knew, it would make you all's lives just that much easier.
Some things I've seen in the county, because I've lived in the county my entire life. Prince George's County is pretty good with their how they treat people with disabilities and like how they assist and everything. The only time I've seen severe issues is in the educational system, because I know some teachers aren't trained on it, on like how to deal with a disabled student. Like for me, if you saw me in person, like I have an invisible disability where I walk, I can run, I drive my car, I used to play lacrosse, everything. So you wouldn't know unless I tell you. So maybe just training people, especially in the school systems or workplaces, on how to deal with people with disabilities. So, because I've seen in some cases, like again, with the school discriminating against me, I was an honor student, an AP student all through high school. So the teachers would see I had a disability, or what we call a 504 plan, which is accommodations.
I had one.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'm dyslexic.
Oh, well,
but continue, keep going.
Oh, yeah, I had a 504 plan too, but my teachers saw that on my transcripts and they're like, oh, she should be with these CRI kids. But yet I was in honors and AP and I worked twice as hard as half of my classmates and sometimes would outdo them. So they just, yeah, they would try to undermine me. So maybe have some training there for how to deal with those type of students or those type of people in the workplace, so everyone can feel comfortable and there can be some equity.
I definitely agree. And I'm hoping that as we progress as a country, that we start to do more for our citizens with disability and with learning disabilities and in schools. And like you said, having trainings. And you're actually getting me into my next question. So you talked about living in Prince George's County, and you also talked about your diagnosis. And I don't want to overstep any boundaries, but a lot of African American people do not get the diagnosis that they need early enough in their life for it to make a difference for them. I have a friend, and an old story, I'm not even going to get old story, of somebody who grew up with disabilities and wasn't aware that they had disabilities, and their parents were really getting on them because their parents just thought that they didn't have good grades, or they weren't trying hard enough, or they were, a bunch of things that weren't necessarily true. So as far as diagnosis, how do you think you having a diagnosis so early kind of set you up to better prepare, and how it might have been different if you got diagnosed at a different age?
I think it's better that I got diagnosed early. I do know some people who got diagnosed later. So actually my mom, she works in special ed department since I've grown up, which I guess was really beneficial for me because she kind of knew how to deal with a disabled child and everything. So I've seen people who get diagnosed late and how it can affect them, but being diagnosed early really helped set me up. So I knew how to like advocate for myself. So I knew how to make plans for myself so I can adapt to like normal public school and everything. So I think that was one of the benefits. But if I would have been diagnosed later, I think I would have had much more issues, especially in high school. Because one thing that I've seen being disabled in through middle school and high school is a really tough area because you're trying to blend in with other students so you don't stand out.
I know. And when they pull you out of the room to take a test in a different room, and people are like, why does she get to leave? Or why does
that
she
was
get
the worst
calculator?
thing.
I got you. I understand it. I definitely agree that it is kind of, so going along with your statement of just treating people normally, I don't think people understand just like how important that is. Because when you hear someone say, oh, well, why does she get to use a calculator? Why does she get an extra 10 minutes for her test? It not only makes us feel bad about the fact that we have to take an extra 10 minutes, but the fact that we're being called out and these people don't even kind of know like the half of what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm really experiencing that in college now because actually, even though I'm a rising junior this year, my freshman year, I was a dual enrollment student. So half of the morning I've spent at high school, the other half of the day I've spent at college.
Right.
Then we know what happened last year. We were all locked down, pandemic. I didn't see you, no one saw me. Right. But this year we're going back in person, and classes I do have hybrid. Like I've had people say, well, how come you have extra time? But because of my experiences, I'm not afraid to like explain to them, well, this is what I have going on. And this is why, like, I feel like my experiences have made me more empowered and more confident about explaining these type of things to people. Like I have no problem laying it all out there, being like, this is what I have, and answer every question.
Yeah, and I'm sure it also makes people like kind of like do a double take or be like, oh, I shouldn't have asked, or I should have just mind my business, like something along those lines. But I think it's great that you take time out of your day to explain your situation to other people, because I know that that's not everybody's reality, not something that everybody's comfortable with. So kudos to you for that. And you are just hitting it on the nail. I was going to ask you about your college decision and your disabilities and how that plays hand in hand. So I'm from Prince George's County as well. Live 15 minutes from Bowie State, so I know exactly where you are. And I'm aware that they have pretty good student help services for people with disabilities. Would you say so? And also, is that a reason why you chose Bowie? Were there other universities that you were considering, but their services kind of like impacted your decision?
So for Bowie, I have many reasons for going to Bowie. One, when I was doing dual enrollment, I was already at Bowie, so I already had credits there. And I had relationships with some of the professors because, that's really good when signing up for certain things they're on. So that was one good thing. And I knew my way around. So that was really good. Because with my disability, like, even though it's invisible disability, I do have my limits. So yeah, that was one of the things. It's close to home. Like I live maybe like 5 minutes from campus. But I did have other opportunities. Like I got into Delaware State University. I think I got into Clark and a couple other HBCUs, like all over, like Southern, all of those good ones. But as good as they were, I think it was better for me to stay here, especially for my health. Like my doctors are in Baltimore. So
Gotcha.
plus staying at home is still a good idea for some stuff. I know it's not for everybody, but there are many benefits, and Bowie does have a really good disability program. Like I've never had any issue with it.
And that's amazing because as we were talking about earlier, there are people who are out here who don't even know. So to be able to go to a university that treats their students equally across the board is just a relief, I'm sure. So that is awesome. And I hadn't even considered the medical toll that your disability takes on you. And just the fact that you mentioned that it's harder for you to relocate. So with that being part of your reality, and I think that you have such a, not just in terms of your disability, I think you have such a positive spirit. So how did you become so positive? Being, like that's not something that everybody can just, not everybody could just inform everybody on their disability and just be like, oh, well, somebody learned something new today. So how did you become the person that you are?
See, I've actually been asked, oh no, it's fine. But I've been asked that a lot actually. And I don't know. I think growing up, I've always just been joyful. And even though I had disability, I will admit, growing up, I was kind of sad about being like, oh, I can't do this like the other kids. I can't do that like the other kids. But I just learned how to adapt. And half the time, like even my family will tell you, we forget I have a disability half the time. Because like, I don't even know. Yeah. We kind of just are used to our routine and everything is kind of set. So.
That is awesome. So let's talk about the things that aren't set. Did you ever think that you would be talking at the White House or at Black Caucus? Those are amazing events and spaces. Please tell me more about those experiences and how you took all that in, how you prepared, how you executed, how you kept your cool, because I probably would not be able to do so.
So with those experiences, oh my gosh, those are like some of my favorite memories ever. So of course the White House and Congressional Black Caucus are so like mind-blowing, right? I got those opportunities by actually, I think my mom found something on Facebook and then like she signed me up for it. You're like, oh, do you want to go to this? And I said, sure. So I went and I was unprepared. I didn't think I was going to get called up or anything. The director of African American Excellence for Education at the time during the Obama administration, he actually called me up on stage, being like, Paige, come up here. I'm like, really? Me? Like, there's a whole bunch of other people. Yeah. So he called me up and he just had me talking. And then he's like, you know what? I want you to come to the Congressional Black Caucus and be the voice for disabled students. And for both of the events, there was no speech, there was no set or anything. They didn't tell me what I was talking on. They were just like, we need you to come to this. And when they asked me to talk, I was just talking off the top of my head, kind of like now.
Oh my gosh. That is phenomenal. I'm so serious about public speaking because that I would have been up there stuttering, shaking in my boots, literally. So that's so amazing. And speaking of careers, you said that you would like to be a doctor to educate yourself and inform others on your rare type of disability. So let's get into that a little bit.
So for that, I plan to either go into neurology. Well, I'm really thinking about neurology because it has a lot to do with my condition. Like most people with my condition, again, they are affected differently. So by being a neurologist, maybe I can help them in other ways that other doctors can't. Because think about it. If someone has the same condition as you, they know exactly what you're feeling. and they can kind of understand it better compared to someone else who like is on the other side of the looking glass. So yeah.
That is great. And so you also, so with that, that is the medical side, but you also speak about the education system and doing better. So is being an educator in the mix there somewhere? Because you said your mom is an educator, and as a student, as a kid of two educators, I know you probably have that thought lingering in the back of your mind, don't you?
Yeah, I've thought about going to education, but I'm just not as passionate about it as much as I am with medicine. Like medicine is where my heart is. So
that is fantastic. Took a bio class, passed with the A. That was a miracle. But kudos to you. Neurology is way above biology, so I wish you the best of luck with that. But let's talk about social life. So in terms of making friends and setting boundaries with people, do you think that you have a more difficult time making friends than the average person, or do you think that your experience is pretty normal?
I think my experience is pretty normal. I think it all depends on the person too. As you can tell, I can be very outgoing and very extroverted sometimes. So that can kind of be an advantage for me. So yeah.
And that's good. So do you think, so that was in grade school is what most of your experience for, because since we're only class of 23, whoop whoop, college, very fun. But in grade school, you traveled with these group of people that probably had a sense of awareness or understood or were around you. And it, like you said, how for your family, like it wasn't a thing. For people who are around you every day, it probably wasn't a thing. So I heard you talk about in college, the questions that you get. But what do you think that your social life is going to be in college? And we're in a terrible spot leaving college as soon as the pandemic hit. But how do you think that your experience is going to be in the fall?
I feel like in the fall, it's going to be much more different because, college is nothing like grade school at all. Right. People are very different. So I don't know. I think I'm going to try to learn how to adapt with that. I don't know. I think that's going to be more interesting to see.
Yes, but I'm sure you've got a good handle on it. And as far as a course load, I heard you talk about your AP and honor students. So I have no doubt that you've got it covered. But are there any things that you do that might be a little bit different than the average student? We all know that it is hard to just develop your own studying style, and that's for everybody. So are there certain things that you do to that might go the extra step or the extra mile to make you an even better student?
Yeah, actually, so right now, like I said earlier, I really want to go to med school. I want to go to med school immediately after undergrad. So I currently have a med school advisor at the university and then two med school mentors who just got me into a virtual shadowing program, which is actually meant for med school. So last night was the first one I ever got to go to, and I got to watch general surgeries and actually get to talk to the general surgeon. It was so cool.
Oh my gosh. Girl, you got it all figured out. Literally, you got it all figured out. Well, that is amazing. And so since you've been in Prince George's County for so long, do you ever see yourself moving to a different spot? I know you mentioned that, your doctors are here, but say there's some doctors in Atlanta or California. Where do you see yourself being this amazing doctor?
So I definitely want to get out of Maryland. My whole life is here and it's beautiful. I love Maryland with all my heart. I want to travel. I want to either go to New York, because New York is beautiful and everything. Yes. It's like a little mini DC kind of. But I've also thought about Atlanta and LA. Because LA is really cool too.
Yeah.
And one of the main ones I'm looking at right now is actually New Orleans.
Okay.
Because I have a lot of family there.
Yeah. And so do you think you're going to start with med school, go to med school in New Orleans, somewhere like LSU or something, and get acquainted and see if you want to stay, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I take that back because I go to Howard and you go to HBCU. So
Ooh, my mom
I'm with
went there.
I'm with the HBCU vibe. So maybe Howard Med. We'll see. I'm not gonna push it too much.
And no, I'm actually looking at Howard Med. That's actually my top one right now, but I'm still keeping my options open.
Yes, as you should. You've got some time till we graduate. But that is all the questions for me. Thank you so much for just sharing your expertise and just taking some time out of your day once again to kind of just inform us of what a day in your life looks like. You have a promising future ahead of you. Seriously,
Thank you.
like I'm excited. So just thank you so much. And so for everybody watching at home, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. And thank you again for being here today. For people who are watching at home, be sure to check out inreachinc.org for more information related to this topic, upcoming events, and more information about things going on in Prince George's County. See you next time, and thank you so much, Paige.
Oh, thank you for having me. No